Greetings, everyone. I'm very grateful to be at this stage I've admired long for. And I want to start with one simple realization I had about people. At the age of 16, I went across people of all ages to ask them what has been one very important and momentary point in their life. And most of the answers I got were related somehow to when they found themselves being the most impressive person in the eyes of others. And what's interesting is not how and why these labels were put of being impressive, but how slowly and even quickly it starts to take away individual curiosity. Think of it as a time when you get really glad when someone stops asking you about yourself and rather they themselves start explaining about who you are. And I had this quiet realization when I was finally able to talk to one of the people I was really inspired by in my life, admired long enough and found him very impressive. During that 1 hour long conversation, my lens and perspectives of how I looked at the lives of people I found impressive and how I tracked down my own life really changed. One of the first things that I realized was that how at times the idea of being impressive is so much instilled into us that we start to take it only as the meaning, as the ease of the word carries. And with this, I'd want to start with the first discovery that I had, which is how curiosity slowly gets disciplined by the idea of you being impressive. Think of it like the first time that you were asked in a serious tone of what you want to become. As a child, I had this encounter multiple times, and what really mattered the most for me at that point wasn't how my answer was correct to myself or how deeply I felt it was right. It was how cohesive, clear, and stable it sounded to the person who asked me this question. And that's where most of us start to think of clarity as something really productive. The kids who have a clear answer and are always focused are the ones who are at the top. Those who are confused, yet exploring, are maybe the ones who don't know much about themselves or the world around. But what if this narrative itself gets flipped? However, we presently find this so explicitly and inside ourselves that we rarely question it. And this is how impressiveness also works. It gives you reassurance, it takes away friction, it also gives you stability and other people much more about yourself. But what it also gives you with that stability is a quite limited addition to grow within the certain aspect of where you are already very impressive and perfect. And slowly, you start to edit out the parts maybe are a little risky to do now because what if you are not impressive anymore? And that's how we begin to narrow down our own curiosity. During that 1 hour long conversation I had with my inspirational figure, I went back to one of the moments in my life, which was not a failure. It was one where I achieved the thing that I dreamt the most. And I realized how it is so difficult to get this within the systems because impressiveness rewards people for succeeding inside it. Ever since I was 12, I deeply wanted to get into an institution to study. And all of my life choices, my decisions, my efforts were trained around and justify if they would help me get admitted 5 years later to that particular institution. And all of my life would be set ahead. I worked hard, indeed, but when the final acceptance came in, as much exactly as I wanted, I stepped back with a lot of hesitation of maybe I don't want to go now. Even at that point, I knew that this hesitation is not of fear, is not of confusion. It is of something else. And I let it sit because it was too young of me to say no to such a big decision, and probably I've never seen it happen. When people around me pushed me so much to actually go there, otherwise it would hamper my growth. I realized the assumption that we rarely question. How is continuity always associated with growth? I wanted to go to that place to learn more, to explore more networks and get global exposure. And maybe the version of myself that I dreamed of living 5 years or 7 years down the line, I had already learned so much in the pursuit of achieving it. And at that point I realized maybe this might not be the rightest thing to do as of now. I need to reshift a little bit, change my direction, and think of something new and discontinue from the path that I was going in. That's where I realized that continuity is not always growth, and our systems don't always find that as impressive. This was made clear when I looked back into another moment. I was in 8th grade. I was really passionate about this one particular quiz, and I was highly underqualified for it because I was not one of those who would study hard and would have everything crammed up in my mind. But before confidence came in, curiosity was what led me to do well in that field. Because before any sense of identity or any sense of self, I was passionate about it and I wanted to go in. And that's where I also realized that many a times reputation with that impressiveness, when it comes along, takes you away from the things that at times become too risky. And those risky things that we don't touch are just mere exploration of maybe looking ahead or beyond of what we are already doing. And that's how we start to edit out parts of ourselves, structure and streamline into what we are already doing. The other realization that I had during that conversation was how curiosity and impressiveness, both of these play along, and the cost of it is not failure, it is elasticity. Impressiveness, I believe, does never pose a threat because of its superficiality. Rather, because it makes us too fragile to touch ourselves back again and maybe explore something new, because what if we doesn't fit in? Earlier, at that time, I was 12 when I was preparing for that quiz, I asked myself, what if I try this? What if it worked? Later, maybe I often found myself asking, what if I doesn't fit in? And what if I fail? I might not be impressive anymore. And that's where we do at times not realize that it is not about failing. It is about us pushing away the elasticity that we hold within ourselves. Elasticity is not about your intelligence, is not about your creativity. It is you looking around yourself and maybe asking, what if this could be the thing that can lead me to a step better? Which, when we put ourselves into fixed boxes, is very hard to find. Coming back to how impressiveness is so fragile, think of it like when we become impressive, we become a lot more understandable. Everybody knows us now, everybody understands us now, and we are perfect in this definition in the eyes of everyone else. And clear, good, and innovative ideas rarely start with a sense of being understandable. Also, along with that, we misinterpret clarity to give us some of the best ideas. The most clear talks, the most clear presentations, the most clear write-ups. All of these are what works the best. But the most revolutionary and transformative works of art, history, science, philosophy have rarely started with looking anything other than mere derivatives. And when they look clear, when they look impressive, is when they've already passed down the phase of a lot of contradictions and a lot of looking messy. Impressiveness also is something that makes us narrow down our path into only fit into that direction. And this is where a lot of people fall into. I, as a 17-year-old, a few years back, was only indulged into thinking about how I'm so afraid to put myself into cohorts, pathways, and systems of life which could turn me out as an impressive child. I deeply wanted to win, but I was so afraid of competition already. And so I thought, maybe I could shift my pathways a little bit, try some unconventional things, try some things that are not yet impressive, to reach to the same cohort of people as the one I wanted to become easily, through that pathway of being impressive, being the perfect child. And so I found out multiple possibilities we do not look at because so many things of the social construct of a limited beliefs of what impressive and perfect holds us behind. Impressiveness also does not always reward depth. It does not ask you how far you've been messy to reach out to this place, or how you've been standing, what holds you from behind. And that's where it starts to take away your own elasticity. Because once validation come in, your curiosity is not led by momentum, it is led by, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? What if it doesn't look good on the person that I've become for so long? And that's where it takes away the idea of exploration, the idea of looking around yourselves again, and the idea of changing yourself a bit once again. And this is so systematically instilled into ourselves that we often think that if you still find yourself interesting or have interest in exploring yourself once again and not continue that particular definition of being impressive and the same pathway, you are a rebellion. I call it, maybe you're not a rebellion, maybe you're just having a delay. A delay in putting a cut, clear, perfect definition to make people understand who you are and find yourself perfect in that definition. Because once you become understandable to everyone and perfect in that definition of being understood, there's very little you have to find within yourself. Thank you.